Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends. Today we are going to discuss a very interesting subject which is called interpersonal versus intrapersonal. Now I'm sure we all must have heard what is interpersonal. Interpersonal we have done in a lot of other previous videos, that what exactly do we mean by interpersonal skills. But now, since we all know what is interpersonal skills, now we have come to the stage where we need to also understand what is intrapersonal skills. Many of you all know, many of you don't know. So here I am to make you aware of what exactly do we mean by interpersonal and intrapersonal skills. Friends, interpersonal skills is something to do with our communication with others. Now, we have done in the previous videos that all the communications that we carry out with different individuals, like as an individual I would have a interpersonal relationship or interpersonal communication with my family, with my colleagues, with my relatives, with my friends. Now everyone has their own different way of dealing with me, and as a person I am actually dealing with multiple personalities while I'm talking to all these people differently. So basically what I'm doing is I'm interacting with my family in a different way. I'm handling my colleagues in a different way. I'm also handling my friends in a different way. With them I have a different area of gossip and chit-chatting. My relatives are to be handled in a different way. So as a person, I'm actually planning my entire communication or my way of behavior or my relationship with all of them in different formats. So this is what we call as interpersonal skills, when our skills are related to someone else while we are talking or communicating. For that matter, if you only focus on your workplace, I as a person am also dealing with my bosses, my managers, I'm dealing with my customers, with my colleagues, with my superiors and with my inferiors. So as a person at my workplace as well, I'm doing a lot of activities, and here involves a lot of communication from all the people around me. I have their different categories, and so I need to deal with them in that particular way. This is what is interpersonal skills. So interpersonally, I'm interacting with all other personalities. So I as a person, I'm playing a personality of multiple disorders or multiple orders, I would rather say. Now, same way, if I talk about what is intrapersonal skills, now intrapersonal skills is where I would know what skills I have within me or within myself. So these are the skills which I need to be or need to have more polished than the interpersonal skills, because interpersonal skills can only develop once you know how intrapersonally are you, how sound are you at your intrapersonal skills. Believe me, friends, someone who is very good at their intrapersonal skills knows its own identity and personality really well. So, for us to actually understand or develop our personality, so you might see there are a lot of classes which have in personality development. What do they really do is they help you to actually communicate with all sorts of people in life, and that's how you can actually build up an amazing personality for yourself. A person who knows his own identity and his own personality can outstand in the entire crowd. And that's why we say intrapersonal skills are more important than interpersonal skills. We humans are all social animals. Why do we say that? Have you heard about humans are social animals? You must have heard this phrase or sentence everywhere. But do you know the logic of why do we say this? It is that we always need someone or the other to talk to or to communicate, where we share our opinions, thoughts, feelings, news, everything. So this entire communication is a substantial part of our life. It's a very crucial part of our life, where without communication we do not survive. Whether you say something or even if you don't say something, it's an automatic conversions or conveying of a particular message to other people. It is depending on people around you as well. So what kind of surrounding are you into, and then only according to that you communicate in that way. So to give you an example, I was sitting with a group of friends of my father's, so my parents' friends, and here I am supposed to talk about what I do. Here I would not put myself in a way, the way I put up to my friend. A friend would I simply say that, oh, you know what, I've started my class, why don't you just come visit? It's fantastic, I've started this, that, and all of that, all the news that I would give to my friends. But if I had to talk the same way to my father's friends or parents' friends, I would have not spoken like that. I would have been more professional, more sophisticated, continuation of the more polished in conveying of what I really do, so that fascinates them. So it depends on my surroundings, all of our surroundings. It depends only then how we talk, how we communicate. So surroundings matter a lot because it's inescapable. This is something which you cannot escape. It cannot be escaped with, even if you don't talk, your expressions and your body language talks a lot. It can be interpersonal communication or continuation of the video. So unescapable can be your intrapersonal communication or interpersonal. So when I say that when you don't talk, but when you show with your expression or your body language, that is exactly what is intrapersonal communication also. I can say that because it's finally your way of communicating things without really communicating. The main difference between intrapersonal and interpersonal communication is that the former is invisible and it goes in your mind, and then later it is visible and it takes place between several parts. So first you capture the surrounding, first it goes on in your mind, and then only we understand what output do we give while we really talk. So while now I'm talking to the camera, I've already made up my mind first of what really I'm supposed to talk, and then I actually start talking. So before getting started on the camera, I take 2 seconds to first read and analyze of what really I need to talk in further 15 minutes. So that's exactly what I mean by intrapersonal skills. With this, I'm going to also help you out with a chart. Alright, now this chart is basically intrapersonal versus interpersonal. And what does it really have? It has a comparison chart, it has definitions, key differences, and finally conclusion. So friends, we will go each step each way. So first let's focus on comparison chart. So friends, if you look at the comparison chart, you will realize that there are a lot of differences between interpersonal and intrapersonal skills. So when you see the chart now, let's go according to each step one-on-one, where we can draw clear attention of the following grounds. So the communication that we have with ourselves, that is the communication that occurs in our own mind, is known as your intrapersonal communication. The communication between one or two person or more per people through verbal or non-verbal communication or messages is called your interpersonal communication. Alright, so intrapersonal is something that we do within to ourselves in our mind, and interpersonal is something that we do with people, not necessarily one or two, it can be a crowd of people also, or it cannot, not necessarily verbal, it can be a non-verbal communication also. The intrapersonal communication is communication with oneself, and so only one person is involved in it. So friends, every time I've said this, that communication is a two-way process. Here we are actually talking about only one way. So this communication is not a complete communication, it's just a thought given to communicate. That is why I would say that this is a one-way communication process where only one person is involved and you are actually talking to only one person, that is you yourself within you, in your minds. On the contrary, interpersonal skills is always between one or two people or a chunk of people. So it's exactly vice versa. Now this is two-way communication, and that's why I would say it is complete. Any intrapersonal communication without the interpersonal communication is not a complete communication. Now look at the mind games that we have all the time. And now when I say this, you will also relate that yes, this is what really happens. Intrapersonal communications occurs continuously because it is human tendency to think, analyze, interpret, and visualize things. So these are our different qualities, or I would say these are our different practices of dealing with any people before talking. So intrapersonal skills actually deals with all these aspects, and that's why it's a very, very continuous process. On the other hand, interpersonal communication occurs not regularly, within certain intervals, personally or professionally. So here we have levels, whether we are communicating at a personal level or at a professional level. But this is with intervals because we are not all the time talking to our colleagues, to our bosses, to our friends. Alright, so this has certain episodes of communication where this is not a regular process. It is a process only once we set up our mind and we really need and we find a need to talk. Right? So these are the two major differences in interpersonal and intrapersonal. Let's move ahead and see what other differences can we see in the chart. In interpersonal communication, only an individual's internal senses are involved. Now, when I say the mind speaks, that means definitely we are putting our senses to job. So only our senses, how well can you sense a particular thing, that is something that we focus on and that works. And that's the only process involved when we talk about intrapersonal communication. As against this, interpersonal communication requires media, that is a passage of message to pass to another party. So same thing, otherwise we require a passage of message. So if you remember and you recollect the process of communication, the two-way process chart, so here you require a sender and a receiver to occasionally refer or transfer your messages. In intrapersonal communication is based on thinking and analyzing, while interpersonal communication is concerned with exchanging of ideas, information, options, feelings. So whatever you have thought, now it's the time to exchange, right? So the thought process is your intrapersonal and the exchanging process is your interpersonal. Now let's go to the next part, which is the definition of intrapersonal communication. Now friends, there is nothing like a definition. I can give you an explanation because, as I told you, communication doesn't go with definition, it goes with an understanding of each individual of what that communication does exactly mean to that person, right? So let me give you a little explanation. The communication with oneself is intrapersonal communication. It involves thinking, analyzing, interpreting, accessing, completing, feeling, etc. It is to reflect the individual's selves with a view of clarifying something. So basically what we are doing by doing all this is we are actually understanding our viewpoint or point of view when we say for clarifying certain things. It is an activity that takes place in your mind, in your conscious mind. It's an activity which goes on there wherein a person is involved in the conversation with himself or herself. So within ourselves basically is what I mean to say. It's also commonly known as self-talk or inner speech. So when someone does that, many times you must have seen people on the road who just go on the road, and maybe mad people or people who are not in the correct state of their mind. Because they lose their balance of their understanding, what they do is, many a times you must have seen that they're talking with themselves. When they go on the road, they start calculating something on their fingers, or then they talk something, they mumble like this. And they're in their own senses. They're not really talking to anyone else. But what's happening is, they're actually talking to their own selves. Because there are a lot of things, activities going on in their own mind. And now they do not have anyone else to speak to, and not a control on themselves as well. So these are the people whom you'll actually notice talking to themselves while you walk on the road. And we actually call them, why are they behaving like this? We think, are they really not in their sense? Have they lost it? But it's not always like that. Many a times, people don't realize that they're doing that. They feel that they're talking to themselves within, but actually they're not talking within, but they are talking to themselves. So they are not people who are mad, who are not in their senses or who've lost it, but that's just the way it comes out when they have a lot of other things on their mind and they actually lose the control on their understanding that people are looking at them while they're doing this. This activity can be monologue or internal dialogues. It also is called internal dialogues. That is when you imagine a conversation in your own mind with the absence of any other person. So it is a quite obvious thing that a sender and receiver are the same person. That's the reason many people talk like that. So he understands that the sender is me and the receiver is me. So there's an inter conversation that is going on, and that's why many a times it comes out while we are even thinking. Now, if you talk about internal discourses, this is something very, very new. So I would elaborate and explain it to you in detail. So internal discourse is solo vocal communication and solo written communication. communication, which has another 3 levels of intrapersonal communication parameters. Now, these 3 aspects govern the interpersonal communication. They actually, we do this unknowingly, unconsciously, but these are the 3 major aspects of factors that rule your intrapersonal communication. Let's see what are they. The first one is definitely self-concept. So let me just explain you what you really mean by self-concept. Self-concept ascertains the way an individual takes himself or herself oriented towards others. So it's basically your own idea and your own concept, the way you want yourself to be interpreted or you want yourself to be looked like in front of others. The 3 major factors in self-concept are belief, value, and attitude. Now, these 3 things, if you think, this is exactly how we want people to look at. So, we want people to believe the way we want them to believe. We want people to value us the way we want them to value us. And we want to throw a particular kind of attitude towards others, which they would understand that, okay, this person has these kind of attitudes. So if you now realize or recollect that how you really want an impact of your self-concept to have on others, these are the exact 3 things that we think about before even talking to anyone. So many a times, don't you feel when you go to talk to someone, maybe a meeting, okay, that's the thing when we are really very nervous. So when we go to talk for a meeting, what do we think is, oh, am I looking good? Have I worn the right clothes? Can I make the first impression amazing? What does that person feel the way I am? Will he think that I'm right for the position? Will the conversation go very well? Will they believe that what I'm saying is up to the mark? Will they value my communication? What kind of attitude do I set up in front of these people? Should I show I'm a very humble person or should I show I'm a completely professional? So these are exactly what thoughts go on in our head before actually we get into communication, and these thoughts are nothing but called as self-concepts. We actually want to develop self-concepts for ourselves, for people to believe the way we are. The next is perception. Now friends, perception, everyone knows what's really a perception. Perception is what the mind receives and grabs from outside world is the perception. So the way I look, that person would have a perception about me. So person would feel, wow, really, Karishma looks nice. She looks like a trainer. So that's my perception. That's the impact that I have been able to build on that person. Some might say, no, Karishma really doesn't look like a trainer. She looks more of a coach or a teacher. So that's impact where those people I'm able to put that kind of impact on those people. So this is exactly a perception that we make about a person. I would also say judgment, because we are Indians and we are judgmental. So many a times whenever we go to talk to anyone, just by looking at his, the first impression is the last impression is what we say. So just by looking at a person, we immediately try to judge how that person will be. So that's exactly the perception about that particular person, that before even the person speaks, we've already made up our mind what exactly that person is like. Expectations. Now this is also a very important aspect, because an individual's future oriented projections, so whatever projections he has about himself or herself, that something might happen, is a very important stand to take before we actually get into communication. Many a times there are a lot of expectations that we build for ourselves, that yes, after my project or after my projection or after my meeting, I am going to be liked by everyone. I am going to make it. Today's session is going to be amazing. That's certain expectations that we also start building for ourselves. So there are a lot of expectations that we have from ourselves. So basically 3 different levels of intrapersonal communication are self-concepts, second is your perception, and third is your expectation. All these are built within our minds before even we start communicating. So imagine the mind plays a very, very vital game, and a mind plays a very important place in our communication level. Forget what we really communicated, it's more than that. It's like before also communication, we need to know that are we really doing it well, which the mind automatically does. It's an automatic process which the mind does it for you and it does always. So friends, this I would say was a complete explanation I would give you of what really an intrapersonal skills is, how does it develop, before it goes to the interpersonal level, what phases does it cover. Now, of course, let us jump to the conclusion. So, let's see what we conclude out of this. Intrapersonal communication is the base of interpersonal communication because it's our experiences in which our conception relies and our perception influences our interactions with other people. If your base is not clear, you will not know what to communicate. So I am happy to say that, or to know that 90% of the people have their base clear. They really know what they have to say when. And that's where they are good interpersonal communicators. In intrapersonal communication, the information is always kept in person's mind. However, in the interpersonal communication, the information flows from one person to another. So friends, this was today's very interesting episode, or I would say video, on interpersonal versus intrapersonal. Now I'm sure that you know the concept and now you will think more wisely. Thank you so much friends for watching this video. Please stay tuned to eKila and keep subscribing our channel. Thank you.